Yeah, let's talk Ohio State for a second.
So we mentioned this before. Do we have you want to put the thing up there?
Yeah, well, I'll read the quote again.
Okay,
This
give
is
us the quote.
Bull, you sent it to us this
So
morning.
Kirk Herbstreit was being interviewed, and he talked about there's a small percentage of Ohio State fans who are basically crazy.
And he says, quote, and this is Kirk Herbstreit, the 15%ers, they get mad at anything. That percent is going to be mad at something always. Ryan Day could win the Michigan game, go out into the playoffs and lose, and they'll be mad about that. That group is just a bunch of jackasses who kind of embarrassed us all at Ohio State. So I don't really care, honestly, what that group thinks. But the people who matter, the logical people who actually have a brain and understand the sport, they love what Ryan Day has done. The fact that this is even a topic is almost comical.
Okay, I think Kirk Herbstreit is the best analyst in college football. I love him and respect him as an analyst.
Pretty good in the NFL, too.
And the NFL, too, I agree.
Pretty good.
But I completely disagree. I mean, he's got to get off his ivory tower with comments like this, okay? Ryan Day has been a disappointment as an Ohio State coach. His record is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant because Ohio State plays at least 8 games a year that they have almost no chance of losing, and that they could win with almost any coach, if not any coach in America.
Super facts.
So I don't care about those games. The only games that matter, pretty much, are Michigan and the playoffs. And if you don't win those games, then you didn't do crap, and he hasn't won those games.
I think Herbie's coming from the perspective of that 15%, and I think it's higher.
Way
like
higher.
It's an arbitrary figure that he's throwing out.
I think it's 25.
I think it's a lot higher, probably higher than 25 of the toxic fans.
But he said 15 because he doesn't want to rip too many people.
But that's what drove him out of Columbus. Like, he moved his family out of Columbus because of that 15% that he's talking about. That's why he's in Tennessee now. Like, he's been open about that.
People were like going after him.
Well, yeah, because he was so hard for him to live in Columbus with his kids and family and everything else.
Yeah, and those people are idiots.
And so I think he's coming at this from a very personal standpoint.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But the larger point here, I guess if you want to throw me in that toxic 15%, go ahead, because I thought he could get fired after losing the Michigan game last year. And if he loses it this year, he better just go to the NFL now. Like, he better just find an NFL job and go to the NFL, because if he loses it 3 years in a row, Bull, you're right. There's only a couple of games every year that really matter. I mean, you're Ohio State. I was just down there a few weeks ago, and Tyvis can tell you it's better than anybody. Well, I covered Ohio State for 10 years. Prior to when I covered the NBA, I was an Ohio State beat writer. So I was down there all the time. And to see the Woody Hayes facility now compared to when I was there, I had John's last year, I had Cooper's last year, and most of the Tressel years. And it was nice, but it is unbelievable now. The facilities that they have down there and the way that they show off all the trophies and the Heisman trophies, national championships, Big Ten awards, it recruits itself. The place recruits itself. Yeah. You always get the top recruits. You don't have to be an elite recruiter anymore. Now, if you're a terrible recruiter, of course it's going to fall off. But the place can just, you're going to get 5-star kids in all the time. And there's only a couple of games that are really up in the balance. Every once in a while, Penn State might come up and get you. Every once in a while, Wisconsin might come up and get you. Yeah. You should never lose to Purdue. Like, you should never lose to Northwestern.
And here's the thing, like, that doesn't get talked about a lot. So Ohio is probably, the 4th best state in America in terms of talent behind Florida, Texas, California. Is that fair to say?
No, Georgia produces unbelievable amounts of talent.
All throughout the South.
Yeah.
All throughout the South. But Ohio is in the conference.
Ohio's right near the top. Yes. And I believe it is the only state in America that is near the top of talent and only has one premier program.
Yes.
As opposed to these other states that have
Michigan
multiple
has
premier
two
programs.
Big Ten schools.
Right? And, Pennsylvania has good talent, and they really only have one.
You could count Pitt, I guess.
Yeah.
Pitt
if we count Pitt, don't we have to count Cincinnati?
Kind of, no.
Yeah, I guess. And, Cincinnati's coming. They're on the
coming. But pretty much, you have one of the best pools of talent in America, and you're the only premier program. And you're going to get great talent. And he's done a good job recruiting, but they haven't won the games that matter. And that's all that counts.
2 things is getting them. And I don't think Kirk understands this now. So when NIL came in, right, it changed the game, right?
Yep.
And you would talk to Tyvis, talk to some of these guys around the program, and these guys are getting 6 figures. Easy. I mean, if you're a guy, 5-star guy, you get 6 figures. All the stuff you thought they were doing before, it's out in the open now. It's all good. But when you start taking NIL money, that means you are a corporation. That means you have shareholders. that means you have someone to report to. And if I'm somebody that's a booster, all these PACs and different people giving money, it's just like politicians. Hey, listen, you want to donate to my campaign? Well, guess what? This super PAC is going to funnel this money to you, but when it get time to ready to vote on certain issues, you know where to vote, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at these guys in terms of shareholders and stakeholders, I'm giving these kids $100,000. I'm breaking these dudes off that might not even be playing. Now, I'm giving you that money because I want to see certain results.
That's right.
And the results I care about is Michigan in these championships. And I get tired. See, there's only one thing y'all don't understand about rich people. When rich people get to a certain level, they all rich. There's not too much you can joust. We got the same cars. We vacation the same places. Our kids go to the best schools, blah, blah, blah. But where you get to the top of the food chain, guess what you get? Now I could joust with you when it comes to, well, my team is better than yours, and I helped get that kid, and I landed that kid. And if you know a rich person in Alabama or a rich person in South Carolina named Clemson in Alabama, they're winning. They are winning. They are in those Georgia. They are in those championships every year. And if you rich and you giving your money, you asking Ryan Day, how ain't it kind of hard to see you get the top recruits and you got Olave, and you got Garrett Wilson, and you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you had Jamison Williams. He couldn't even get on the field. You done had all the Boses. You done had all these Chase Young, and you only got one national title since 2015.
Well, he doesn't have any.
He has 0.
Yeah.
So of course you in the hot seat. Like, come
That's
on,
right. That's
you're not competing
You
with
have
the
all
big
this
dogs.
great talent. Let's go. Win the games that matter. Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. For all Urban Meyer's, Jim Tressel, great guy. Urban Meyer, certainly a flawed person, but for all
I'm proud of you, Boo.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. Tone that down.
I
for
toned
Urban.
it down. Flawed
I'm proud
person.
of you. Flawed person.
But
working on that.
those two guys kicked the shit out of Michigan.
Yes.
Almost every time, basically.
And competed
Tressel-
against
Tressel
Southern
was Michigan
teams.
once.
Tressel lost in 03.
Right.
I think that was it.
One time. Urban never lost to Michigan. They understand that.
This is
Dustin Fox, who we all know, friend, my partner for 12 years, only went to Ohio State because of Jim Tressel. Because Jim Tressel, after he went into the gym and said, we're going to beat Michigan, called Dustin Fox and said, I need you here. He was going to go to Penn State like his brother did. Mm-hmm. And he went to Ohio State and was part of that national championship team. Jim Tressel knew what it was about. Urban Meyer wanted to kill everybody and knew what it was about. I don't care. Ryan Day's got a fantastic beard. He's got a great beard game going.
He does.
And he's won some impressive games against Rutgers, Purdue, and Northwestern. Congratulations. You have to win the games that freaking matter. Nobody gives a rat's ass about anything else. Nothing. Those games mean nothing. So, Kirk Herbstreit, you're awesome. And I get it that it's a personal thing. I didn't think about that. And anybody that went after his kids or went after him personally, tried to do anything, you people are awful human beings. You should fall off the face of the earth. But to criticize Ryan Day and to say he should be fired if they lose to Michigan again is absolutely, if nothing else, fair conversation.
They're in trouble this year because they ain't got no quarterback.
Oh, we don't know that.
Oh, I do. Listen,
Stroud looked rough his first start. He looked rough. People were calling for him to be benched his first game.
I've seen your boy McCourt and Brown. Listen, it's the difference between Justin Fields looking bad and C.J. Stroud looking bad because at least you knew they had certain talents and certain skill sets. I don't know if those guys got the certain skill set.
I have a hard time believing Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback.
There's no excuse for that.
I have a hard time.
They have 2 5-stars on the roster, for whatever that means.
Yeah, I mean, Bull, to your earlier, like the whole recruiting thing, actually, Ohio being the hotbed doesn't really matter anymore because Dustin wouldn't get recruited to Ohio State now. And I love Dustin. And I've asked him. I don't know if they would recruit him or if he was a big enough. Like, Troy Smith wouldn't have been recruited by Ohio State now.
Right.
That's amazing.
Is that a negative?
No, it's not a negative.
Well, is there a part of it that's a negative because of the Ohio kids?
There's no affinity. There's no affinity. It's a business. There's no affinity to an Ohio kid growing up wanting to play at Ohio State.
Right.
That's gone.
And that Michigan, that meaning of beating Michigan,
Yes.
is not there as much.
I'll give you talk to Maurice Claret, or Dustin. Like, that worked for him. Like, when Tressel went and got them Ohio kids had a chip on their shoulder. It's like, yo, they played one of the greatest teams I've ever assembled in my life. When I can't say nothing to Dustin. You won't even hear me talk about Dustin in football. Like, I talked to Mike Dawson and them. Like, they went with just Ohio kids. These kids was like around the block kids. Like, up the street that you played with.
The first thing Tressel did was put the borders up around Ohio. And like the Charles Woodsons that left and went to Michigan, the Elvis Gerbachs that left and went, he kept all the in-state talent in Ohio, and they won a national well, that was actually a lot of Cooper's guys that he won a national title with.
But a lot of
he had a lot of success with a lot of Ohio
kids.
kids. Bobby Carpenter, A.J. Hawk, Maurice.
C. Grant. These guys were just Northeast Ohio kids. But the crazy thing about it is, that worked for them. Now Ohio State, I would call they was like a Lexus back then. They Rolls Royces now. Like they got they recruit like
Urban made it national. That's the one thing Urban did.
Yeah.
Was Urban made this a national. I remember they used to never be able to get a kid out of Florida. When Tressel was here, they couldn't get a running back out of Florida. And if they did, they were broken or they were flawed. Like Lydell Ross.
They used to laugh and say, "How do you get the slowest running back out of Florida?"
Because the other three didn't want him. If you got a kid out of Florida, it's because the other three didn't want him.
Right.
And that's not the case now. And that's what Urban changed the recruiting scene at Ohio State and made it a national program. And now Ryan Day's the one that's benefiting from it.
Because it was hard to get Southern kids to want to play.
They couldn't get a kid out of Pennsylvania. I remember when they got Rory Nickel. They got Rory Nickel. I think he was the first tight end recruit out of Pennsylvania. Yeah. And it was like a celebration that they got a Pennsylvania kid away from Joe Paterno. It was like unheard of that you could win a Pennsylvania recruit over Penn State.
Or remember,
because that kid didn't want to end up in the showers with Jerry Jones.
Oh, Lord,
God.
damn!
And then they got Terrell. And then they got Terrell Pryor.
Credit for being posh the other time, and here you
go.
go.
The window.
Remember they got Kenyon Rambo out of California? That was the Kenyon Rambo. He's going to be the next big thing. He did nothing. He did nothing.
I got some Rambo stories.
Looking at the Ohio State recruiting rankings from the last couple of years, their best players haven't been from Ohio. Julian Fleming was the #1 kid in the country, Pennsylvania kid. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Texas. Garrett Wilson went to Baker's High School. Sorry. They recruit Texas as well as A&M and Texas does right now.
All that matters is winning. I don't care about the recruiting rankings.
So.